loud. There you go. We're
Well,
recording.
welcome to the April 4th, 2023 session of TangerineSDR and Hamside technical session. My name is Dave, KV0S, and this week I've been doing a lot of little projects and actually a little house maintenance. So, but that's about it for me. I have made some progress on getting different programming settings set, but still haven't caught up with Tom. So next on the list is Nathaniel, W2 NAF. Go ahead, Nathaniel.
Thanks, Steve. I've just continued doing what I'm doing, which is keeping all these projects running and trying to make sure we're moving ahead. I got all of the student abstracts for the CDR conference were due today. So we got a whole slew of student abstracts submitted. So hopefully we'll get funding for those students. And yeah, just trying to move everything along. W2NF back to that. Oh, one nice thing. The Hamside workshop received a notice in the president of the university's newsletter today. So the president officially recognized our conference. So
very good.
Happy about that.
That's always nice.
The administration knows about us.
Yes.
Okay, W2NF back to net.
Yes, well, very good. And next on the list is Michael, AAK. Go ahead, Michael.
Greetings to everyone listening. Back to you, Dave.
Very good. Next on the list is Bill Engelkey, AB4EJ. Go ahead, Bill.
Thanks, Dave. Good evening to you and to the net. Well, a few things. As you know, my wife totaled her car about a little over a week ago, and so this week was burned a lot of time getting her into a new car. And so what she has now is most strange. I basically twisted her arm. Now she is the proud owner of the first Toyota electric vehicle in the county, which is a Toyota BZ4X electric vehicle. So now we have 2 electric cars. So then, of course, I had to install a second charging point, second 220-volt outlet in my garage for this other vehicle. And so, well, I got that working, but in so doing, apparently I managed to cut a line that an electric line that goes to the outlet that feeds the refrigerator that's in the garage. So that's being fed with an extension cord on it, but we'll get it figured out. I hate the thought of taking that 220-volt outlet apart because I think the line I cut must be right behind it, and it was really a pain in the neck to get in there. So, but anyway, regarding the project, all right. I worked with my students on a job scheduling technique so that when observations come in where we're going to do something to it, like calculate a spectrum chart or anything like that, the watchdog will be able to submit the job to a queue. And so now no matter how many of them come in, no matter how quickly, it'll just crank, the server will just crank through them. If we need to, we can get some more cores added to the server. It'll just crank through them as it gets to them. So we won't have a problem with that. The other thing was that following up on something I worked with several people at the Hamside conference, we now have a system working and running where a Grape 1 that is configured to update or upload its data, convert its data to digital RF, will upload exactly once a day, and all the observations will be exactly 1 day in length. So we won't have to struggle with all that mess with multi-gigabyte uploads and downloads and having to extract stuff out of the middle of an observation to study a particular day and all that. It's going to be on a day basis. And we have all that working, and that is now being benchmarked, or rather beta tested by Todd and Stan. So we've got a couple of users working with that. So making some progress slow but sure. Back to Ned.
Okay, sounds good. Next on the list is Jim, K4 BSC. Go ahead, Jim.
Good evening. Well, let's see what's going on here. I get the picture back. I got my magnetometer late last week, so I'm hoping to get that going one of these days. I haven't had a chance to do much of anything with it yet. For something else I'll talk about in a minute. I am wondering, will I be able to use the same grape 4 that I'm using for the I mean the same Raspberry Pi 4 that I'm using with the grape, or do I need to get another one? Last time I looked, they were kind of hard to come by. So if anybody has any thoughts on that, I would appreciate it.
You mean
But,
for the magnetometer?
Yes,
I think you should be able to use one Raspberry Pi 4 for both the grape and the magnetometer.
okay.
I've done that. I've done that. You can make it do them both. No
Okay,
problem.
that would be good. As I was kind of dreading trying to find another Raspberry Pi 4. Last time I looked, nobody had them in stock.
Yeah, if
Um,
you wanted to dedicate a Pi to it, a 3 works too.
Oh, okay.
Doesn't
think
take a
I-
4.
I
Yeah,
think
the
I've got one
magnetometer
of the,
doesn't take a magnetometer doesn't take any processing cycles, so you can run it on anything that's got the right bus, the GPIO bus.
okay, great. I've got a couple of old Raspberry Pis, I think either 2B or 3, that not doing anything right now, so I could use that. Might be simpler just to get that to work. And let's see, this is going to be the last time I can meet this meeting for a while, because I am teaching an extra class for our club down here, and that starts next Monday night. I was hoping to get that on Tuesday evenings, but the majority wanted on Monday evening. So I'll be teaching that on Monday evenings for about the next 10 or 11 weeks, with the exception of Memorial Day week, which they want to take off. And that's about it. Back to Ned.
Well, we'll miss you, but we'll expect you back later. And next on the list, we have Bob in 5BRG. Go ahead, Bob.
Hello, Dave and everybody. Working on projects here still continuously, but not a lot to report here. Back to you, Dave.
Okay. Next on the list is Dave, AC2GL with a big eyeball. Go ahead, Dave.
Well, I just thought, let me grab the mic. I just thought I'd drop in and see what's going on in the wide, wacky world of SDR. That's it. Back to Ned.
Well, very good. Glad to have you here, and hope you find something interesting. Next on the list is David in 1HAC. Go ahead, David.
Hello, everyone. Been on the bands. I did play around with 6 meters, but I was seeing the seeing South America, but not strong enough to make contact. But I'll keep working on that. I love 6 meters. Also been running 10 meters a lot more activity. I wish more people were on 6, but maybe we can encourage people, especially technicians. They forget they can get on 6, I think. It's been an interesting week working on the various projects. Today was kind of a loss because my hot water heater decided to go out, and it ended up being quite a plumbing project because they've changed code. But they had to add a bunch of stuff that hadn't been there before. Why can't it just be a hot water heater? But anyway, and we're continuing to have our yo-yo weather here. I also recognize that just thinking, well, a couple of things thinking ahead. I'm looking forward to Dayton. We'll be able to come out this year, and hoping to help with the ham side booth and all that. And October 14th, the eclipse, it turns out we've got a ham fest out here. And probably, I'm not sure they've set the date, but it should be. And that'll be interesting. I'll have to be sure to set things in process that are take care of themselves for that project. Of course, we'll have, we're hoping to have our AM Doppler system running for that. I did realize that even though the path of the eclipse is on the west side, we do get a partial over here. So there should be effects for the entire country. So a lot of fun stuff to look forward to. So back to Net.
Okay, very good. Next on the list is Don, K1VX. Go ahead, Don.
Yeah, good evening, everybody. Just checking in to see how things are going and what progress is being made and how I might possibly be able to help out maybe with the integration or alpha testing or beta testing or something. I don't know if you need another node in Eastern Tennessee, but I'd be willing to take a look at that. Other than that, I've hooked up with AMSAT and for my satellite background, so I'm going to be working on a couple of their CubeSat programs. So that'll be taking up some of my time. I have quite a bit of time to take up. So just kind of hang tonight, just checking in to see how things are. So back to the net.
Well, very good. That sounds like an interesting project. Next on the list is Gary, AF8A. Go ahead, Gary.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. I've been spending my time also working on some projects around the house and trying to keep the Hamsite website up and current, and work with a few other people who've been asking about our solar eclipse QSO party and some of the other events coming up for the eclipse. So trying to do what I can to keep the media folks content. That's it. Back to Net.
Okay, and next on the list is Jay, WB8 SBI. Go ahead, Jay.
Yeah, good evening, everybody. Not a whole heck of a lot happening that's new here. As a matter of fact, nothing new happening here. So 7-3 all, back to Net.
Okay, next on the list is Jim, and I'm going to probably butcher this last name, Kinor. Is that right, Jim?
Is that
Jay?
K0NRE?
Oh, maybe that's his call sign. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, that's a call sign.
Trump Organization criminal fraud case.
Good evening. That's
Sorry.
my call sign. KE0NRE.
It could be a last name.
Yes, it could.
And I'm dropping in tonight for the first time to see what's going on with TangerineSDR, and happy to absorb whatever I can tonight. Back to Net.
Well, very good. Welcome. And sorry about the mess up on your call sign. I did butcher it. Next on the list is Joe, W7LUX.
Good
Go ahead,
evening,
Joe.
everyone. Yeah, good evening. Thanks, Dave. Good evening, everyone. Watching the trees blow around, but looking at a chart of the U.S. weather, I think we've got pretty good weather compared to most of the rest of the country. The grape receiver is plugging away. It hasn't shown anything spectacular here recently. And to take up a fair amount of my time getting ready for the Flagstaff STEM celebration at the end of the month. So we're going to go out and put up some amateur radio stuff and some ham size stuff, of course, and see if we can bring anybody into the fold. Thank you, Dave.
Very good. And next on the list is Jonathan, KC3EEY. Go ahead, Jonathan.
Hi, everybody. It's been a pretty busy week. I was asked by someone who knows a high school physics teacher to come and do a presentation for some high school students I guess still don't have a lot of details on that yet, so that still has to be hashed out. Maybe I'll talk about natural radio. Also, I've been I've been working on an article for a journal. It'll be about the VLF reception system and some of the data and emissions that were captured with it, some of the science questions and everything. From what Nathaniel and I discussed, Christina's recently published paper is actually the perfect model to go off of for this. So I'm gonna utilize her paper as a model. Also, I posted some information on the VLF Facebook groups that I'm part of. There's actually one that's growing pretty rapidly these days. ELF, VLF, LF Facebook group. It's run by some of the people that are involved in VLF.it. That's the European VLF community. But there has been a lot of different people added to the group. Mainly quite a bit of hams from the US actually. So I made a couple posts on the VLF system and some of the emissions that were captured, and that Whistler histogram, and I seemed to garner quite a bit of interest. And you know, a lot of people were really happy with the results and with the system and everything else. So hopefully this means more people would want to actually run VLF systems that are able to in rural areas, which will be nice. And I'm also working on, I'm continuing the build on the dual channel H field receiver. I would like to get it at least built and testing by this summer. You know, since the weather is a much nicer, I would like to test it outside and you know, work out any bugs and see how well it performs. So I'm working on that. I'm actually kind of excited about it. Other than that, that's all I have. Back to the net.
Okay, very good. And next on the list is Tom in 5EG. Go ahead, Tom.
Okay, there we go. Got to
There you
click the
go.
mouse in the right place. Good evening, everyone. Week not as productive as I'd like. Somehow some emergency managed to come up 7 days in a row, about 8 in the morning, which sort of blew away much coding. I've got the code written for moving samples from the receiver to the CPU. It's not been tested. That'll be the next step. If that successfully gets the samples, that should be about half of the code needed for test phase 1B. The A to D converter is really nice in that it's got a digital test mode in it where you can have it generate a continuous pattern digitally and send those to the FPGA. And so that kind of divorces the analog processing side and lets one focus on, are the bits getting correctly moved from the A to D's internal digital logic through to the FPGA. So that'll be this week. And next week, hopefully can report back on where we are with that. Back to the group.
Well, very good. Sounds like even though with the delays, some progress. So, okay. Have I missed anyone? I don't think anybody else has jumped in there. So that brings us to the end of the list and we should be open for general discussion.
Oh, I just wanted to share an anecdote about misconstrued call signs. I got a QSL card on my windshield at the workshop for what was it? V0 RTX. My license plate is Vortex, VORTX.
Well, that's pretty good.
But I understand the confusion.
I wanted to mention, we didn't have any tornadoes yet here at my location, but we did have a hailstorm the other day, this weekend, and from half an inch to an inch, but that's it. Wasn't very much, so it really didn't do much damage.
You mean half an inch of accumulation or
No,
half an inch diameter?
Size diameters.
Oh, wow.
Hell, and now we're getting inundated by roofers wanting to come and check our roofs.
Jonathan, how's your paper coming? Do you have any questions about it?
It's actually coming along pretty good. I'm using PowerPoint to actually create the figures.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like how you had me create figures for the grant proposal.
Mhm.
And I was kind of aiming for figures similar looking to the ones that are in Christine's paper. Actually, I think her paper is a great model for the kind of story that I would tell.
That's good.
What do you think about that?
I think it's a great idea. Do you want to show us any of your figures so far?
Let's see. I have oh, I don't have them on. Don't have them on this drive. Oh, that's right. They're on my laptop because I was using PowerPoint on my laptop. No, but it is a breakdown of the system, and then for the next three figures, it covers some whistlers, the dawn chorus events, and then I don't have the fourth figure yet, but the third figure I want to do like the Whistler histogram and similar stuff. So I would start with the system, and then the signals that I would get with the system, and then the analysis of the signals and some of the science questions that would come from that. You know, like that's kind of how I had it outlined, which seems to fit.
Yeah, I think that sounds very good.
Okay. All right, I'll just continue along. What is the due date? Do you have a due date yet for this?
So I was saying nominally, I was hoping you and the other team members would get the drafts to me by around like Hamvention. And then we try and put it all together.
Hamvention is,
May 20th approximately.
okay, okay,
So right around there. So basically I would get the input from all of you around that time. And then I would try to weave it all into a single manuscript.
okay. All right, I will keep it, 1,500 words and the 4 figures. So am I allowed captions for the figures or?
Definitely. Definitely captions. In fact, with the captions, you really want to make them more detailed than you might think. So the captions you want to really explain in words what the figures are saying.
Okay. All right, and then just kind of just with the text, I would tell the narrative, but with the figures or with the captions, I would explain what the figures mean and what it's saying basically.
Yes. So you start by choosing your figures and putting those in. Then the next thing you do is you write your captions and you try to make those fairly detailed. And then you write your text telling the story around the figures.
I see. Okay.
And you can actually reuse text from the captions into the actual paper and just expand on the captions a little bit.
Oh, okay. All right. All right. Well, that's not bad at all.
So when a person goes to read one of these papers, they often will just start by flipping through the figures. And they'll try to understand the paper just by looking at the figures and maybe the captions.
I see.
So when you do your figures and when you're preparing them, you really want to make sure your figures can stand on their own and that all the information you need to understand the figures is right there.
Okay. Okay, that makes sense. Just like how Christina's paper does that.
Yep.
Yeah.
And figures will go together into a great poster too.
Right. Okay. Okay. Yeah, I could probably do that because with with PowerPoint, I could do that. I could rearrange things and I don't have to be this Photoshop artist. I could just simply use PowerPoint and okay. All right. Well, yeah. Then that makes it much easier than I thought it would be. Yeah, because I have the one figure started, about the system and it's basically pictures of pretty much everything. So I'll and do the captions, could they be within the figure itself?
No, you want the captions to be separate text. Right. So the caption will be right below the figure.
Okay. All right.
Let me see if I can bring up an example manuscript that I have here. Let's see here. If I go to your projects, archive projects. Share screen 1. So when I start putting the manuscript together, it will probably go into a document that looks like this, a template like this.
Right.
And I will probably start by putting the figures all the way at the end of the document. So like here's my figure 1 from that paper. So you can see there's a figure and there's the caption.
I see, okay. And then you have each individual plot or image in the figure labeled by a letter or number, and then you,
Yes.
okay,
Yeah, and that way I'm able to uniquely refer to that letter or to that figure 2A, figure 2B, etc.
okay, all right.
Yeah. So you
makes
can
sense.
see I'm fairly detailed with my captions there.
Yeah,
Yeah. The other thing you might want to do is if you can it's good to figure out how to weave the professional literature into your narrative. You know, when you're like, if you're talking about whistlers, you know, you probably want to you actually want to cite some professional papers that talk about the whistlers. And so you might think about do some literature search to see what's been done already and how your work relates to what's already out there in the professional literature.
what about Bob Helliwell's work? His textbook on whistlers, because that's a great reference.
You can cite that.
Okay,
I think I have a copy here. I don't think I've read it, but I think I have a copy. Yeah, I have it right here. Whistlers.
whistlers and related whistlers, yep, that's it.
Yep. Yeah. So yes, I do have a copy here. Yeah. Yeah, you can absolutely cite things from here.
Okay,
And then you should also you know, also do some Googling, go to scholar.google.com and like look up Whistler mode waves and see if you can find some more recent papers too. So if you're able to put your work in the context of some more recent papers, that's often good to do. If you know, maybe there's some classic papers that need to be referred to. It's worth looking at some of these to kind of read how they describe things.
I see.
You see, like here's an introduction. So this is what discovery of very large amplitude Whistler mode waves in the Earth's radiation belts. So this is not really using ground-based instrumentation. This is, you know, space-based. But you can see how these introductions are written, see how they weave the citations right into the text.
Right, right.
So that's something you're going to want to do as well.
Yeah, because I've actually done that with the because I wanted to talk about elves and ELF tales. And I actually have the papers, I have two papers talking about exactly what I want to talk about. So I'll use those as well.
Yeah.
Because one paper talks about the ELF tails and continuing current strokes. And then the other paper talks about that continuing current strokes are often associated with elves. So I could tie both together by and the thing is I'll have to get permission from the photographer who photographed the elf.
To include the elf in your image, in your paper.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. No, it sounds like you're on a good track there.
Yeah. And yeah, just kind of like an overview of all the things that I've been doing, which I think would be good. And then eventually, once I get this down, maybe I could do my PhD thesis.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So if I have any questions, I will let you know. But in the meantime, I will work on telling the story with the figures.
That's a really good way to do it.
Okay.
So another thing, I think we may have talked about this a little bit. I've been asked to give the Flex Radio banquet talk on Thursday night at Dayton. And there's a couple of thoughts I had. One is when I actually give the talk, I thought it would be good to say how you could use Flex radios to help with ham-sci. So that's one part of it. And then the other part I thought might come out of this would be some sort of recommendation for manufacturers that I could give to Flex, but maybe make it generic enough that it could apply to many different manufacturers, of recommendations on what they could do to add features to their radios to make it more useful to ham-sci. So I think with that second part, it might be doing things like taking our TangerineSDR requirements document and seeing if we could convert that into a document that's a more generic recommendation for manufacturers in general. The other thing I thought is, I know for the first part of it where people use their Flex radios, I was wondering, I thought maybe Bill might have some recommendations, since you've been using the Flex radio to do testing of the Tangerine so far. I wonder if I might be able to weave that into this story.
Yeah, I'm sure it's possible. I wrote a package that runs on an Odroid, which it talks to well, you just start an IQ output on the Flex, and the package on the Odroid, which could run on a Raspberry Pi as well. But anyway, it takes that data and, well, it responds to the commands from the software that I have that will talk to the Tangerine someday, assuming it conforms to the communication specification. And I think that's what Tom is working towards. So, yeah.
I think I'll have to be careful how I say this, because I don't want to, I don't want people to get the idea that, I don't want to get people all excited about doing this with these systems if it's not really, if we're not ready to take it, and if it's not really ready to go. So I have to think about this very carefully, I think.
Well, I think you need to be able to tell the difference between the kind of data that you're interested in and be well aware, which Bill is, of how their data formats work and what are the differences to get just normal data. Because it's not really an operating thing. It's more of a data collection thing.
Right. It is more of a data collection thing.
But it should be very easy to use that equipment if they're a little bit of a programmer.
Yeah. How the Flexes, are they able to be GPS stabilized?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I have mine hooked up that way. You can buy a Flexus GPS module for about $600, or you can get a Leo Bodner and plug it in the back for about 175. And in fact, I'm using one of the Tapper 10 megahertz distribution things that provides, you put Leo Bodner on one side and you get 8 10 megahertz output. So I'm feeding the grape and the my 2-meter amplifier transverter and also the flex radio with it.
So what is the, I mean, what are the main disadvantages to the flex? Like because it doesn't timestamp, does it? It doesn't timestamp the IQ.
Yeah, you just get, well, man, it's been a couple of years since I looked at this. You know, I don't think it's time stamped. I mean, the flex radio doesn't have it doesn't know the exact time. It's
Right.
not, you're putting a 10 megahertz input into it, but that's just making sure that it's
Frequency stable.
exactly frequency stable.
You know, one thing that talking about the frequency stabilization that I found in my K3, I used it for the first ever run I did for HamSci, and I had it locked to a 10 megahertz GPS disciplined oscillator, and it seemed to work okay. But I got a couple of frequency jumps that I think what was happening probably was that the K3, and I think the flex works the same way. It's not a true phase locked loop. It's more of a frequency locked loop. It looks at its count basically, and I might have the details wrong. It makes a measurement of the 10 megahertz, decides whether it counted too few or too many cycles, and then either adds or subtracts cycles. And they can do it in a resolution of a little bit less than 1 hertz. But I did see some fractional hertz jumps that I think were caused by the frequency locked loop jumping from one point to another. I think, I'm not positive about that, but I think that's what it was.
Yeah, the K3 does not do a phase lock. It just picks the nearest number for the master oscillator, and it jumps by, depends on your frequency, but it jumps by a hertz or half a hertz or something like that. I could not use that for the frequency measuring test. I had to disable that.
Yeah, and I think there's a good chance that the flex works the same way, but I don't know that.
Yeah, ICOM actually phase locks, or at least the ones I've seen. My 9700 actually phase locks.
Does it really?
Yeah, it's an add-on.
Okay, did you got added the I know there's a kit you can inductively couple into the reference oscillator. Is that what you did?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, because they did originally, I guess the 10 megahertz input didn't do anything on the 9700, and then they updated the software, and then it did it in the, you know, the manner you've been describing. And then somebody came out with a kit that would take the output from the Bodner and inductively couple it into the reference oscillator so it would lock it. That sounds like
That's what I have, yes. And it works fairly well.
But none of these rigs actually attach a timestamp to the IQ data. It's
I
just
doubt it seriously.
But Bill, in that Vita 49, does that protocol, you looked through that pretty carefully when we wrote the Tangerine SDR one. What's the difference between what we ended up and what they have?
Oh, Lord, you're talking to me about something from 3 years ago.
Yes.
I go back and look at it. I can't tell you right off the top of my head. Sorry. I reached the age where that kind of stuff doesn't.
Yeah, I seem to remember from those discussions, like the I's and Q's were reversed, or there was like an extra negative number or something, or they were interleaved. Something that was like funny about it.
Can you use the 1 PPS as a timestamp?
The Well, the 1 PPS that doesn't come out of the rig, right?
No, that would be out of your
Yeah.
GPS deal.
Yeah, I mean you can do that, and you can also timestamp it when it gets to the computer too. It's just you lose the farther you timestamp it away from the actual like digitization point, you risk a lot more variance in the accuracy.
There's processing delays too.
Yeah,
Yeah,
And-
there
and
will
that-
be processing delay in the Flex.
right.
And that's more important in the science than
Right.
listening to it or in contesting.
Right.
Right. Which I mean, all of this is to say, like, for some of the science, like when I'm looking at these traveling atmospheric disturbances, you're looking at things that, vary on the short end with a 15-minute variation. And so it's like, if you're looking at something that varies once every 15 minutes, having a couple of seconds of error is not a problem. But if you're starting to do much more careful things, like trying to do these time of flight measurements that like Steve Serwin is trying to do, and some of this other stuff, then it becomes very important.
So, one thing I want you to be sure to remember, Nathaniel, is that a lot of the TAPR effort in SDR started with collaboration with Flex and over the SDR 1000. And the first open HPSDR boards were designed to interface with the SDR 1000, which was an upgrade from the SDR soft rock. Quite a bit of an upgrade, but
Is
so
there?
they
Yeah, there's a lot of issues involved in time marking the samples. What I'm going to try to implement in Tangerine, we have 14-bit samples coming out of A to D. So we have 0 through 13 is the data, 14 is the overrange bit. And what I want to do is take the rising edge of PPS and put it into bit 15 right in the front end of the FPGA, so that there's a single 1 pulse right at the edge of the PPS in the data sample itself. Now, an interesting thing occurs when you down convert a sample set. So you take the IQ stream and you multiply it by an oscillator to down convert it to baseband, and then you have to decimate and filter the samples. That filter function has a group delay that is not constant with baseband frequency. And so the question comes up, where do you put the time mark in the output stream? Because first of all, it's filtered at, 192 kilosamples per second, so plus or minus 96. You have a couple of interesting problems about compensating for the group delay of the filter. That's different for samples that are close to the center of the channel than it is for samples at the far edge of the channel. And I haven't figured out how to do that yet, but there may be a way. For example, at a constant sample rate, you can say, we'll always move the time mark to compensate for the FIR filter length and the CIC filter length. And it'll be the time mark for the output samples plus or minus some error, depends on the CIC filter phase error. And so there's a lot of interesting issues I think we're going to have to work through on that with any radio.
One of the thoughts I've had about trying to do this in the past is to actually have an IQ and maybe a Z channel or a T channel, which is just another oscillator running at whatever frequency that you want to have for your time resolution. So when you're recording data, you're recording all 3 of those waveforms. Now, transposing or transverting the signals also becomes an issue there. But you're going to have this time base. It's supposed to be super accurate. down to 10 to the minus 13th, and you know, you're throwing a whole lot of it away by just using 1 PPS.
Nathaniel,
Yeah.
another person you can talk to is Bob McGuire, because he
And-
has contacts with both Flex and Open HPSDR and Tangerine.
And I'm actually talking to Bob McGuire quite a bit these days, so I can certainly
You can ask him about this because
Yeah.
he's going to be familiar with a lot of the pieces.
Yeah. Are there, from this group, are there any messages that you think would be good for me to deliver at the Flex and or the Tapper banquet?
Well, there's all the potential in the world to collaborate, but you know, Flex is after a market that they can sell.
Right.
And I don't see amateurs buying science grade instruments, but I do see scientists buying. I mean, a lot of scientists bought Edisports.
Right. Well, you don't see amateurs buying science grade instruments. No,
You know,
but
not the high end.
right. But I do see a way forward if like if Flex Radio were to take some of these considerations to, you know, change some of their designs to make it more aligned with like the requirements.
Well, it will be easier for them to do it than just about any other
Yeah,
SDR design.
right.
It's just they have to want to do it.
Right. But I
One
mean,
of
if they're inviting me to their banquet to be a speaker, they might there might be an in there.
But
One interesting thing they have in the radio is ability to monitor multiple channels or multiple frequencies.
Yeah.
And that seems like an interesting thing for this project, because
yes,
you would like to be able to look at effects at multiple frequencies.
Yeah. Yeah. When you say that there are ways that Tapper and Flex could collaborate, do you have ideas or specific ideas?
well, I don't have clear ideas, but a lot of what we did in Tapper would not have been possible for some help from them. And actually, several of the developers that worked on parts of the Open HPSDR project later went on to work for Flex.
Yeah,
Graham.
Flex got a jump start from Tapper, so to
Yes.
speak, early in their development process.
So Graham was one of their employees, and Annalicia.
And Bob McGuire.
Yeah, and Bob McGuire. Well, he was kind of in between Virginia Tech
he
and
was contributing in some form.
Yeah.
Are there any differences you think I should focus on between the two talks?
I mean, I think the big thing is to be clear about your purpose.
Yeah.
What, you know, this is, we're trying to build a nice radio that has some particular characteristics. And that's the characteristics are things that we don't see in any of the other radios in the general price point we're talking about.
Yeah. If I went into the Flex dinner and I said, okay, I gave a talk that we're trying to build this radio that has these characteristics that we don't see in the Flex radios or we don't see in other radios, how do you think that would be received?
Well, I would talk to people who know the folks inside Flex.
Yeah. See, I think
it's also a price point, Nathaniel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Flex radio is a $4,000 and up radio.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what's not really what we're shooting for here. At least I hope.
No, it's not what we're shooting for.
and you get what you pay for. I mean,
Yeah.
we're trying to do something that's very science. It's kind of a different, because the flex radio is a transceiver and all this and that. It's
Yes.
kind of a
Yeah.
different product. I mean, what
Mhm.
we're doing. I mean, I know Scotty wants to make the Tangerine into a transceiver, but that's a whole separate project beyond from what we're working on now.
Right, right.
Yes.
I guess I'm imagining with the flexes, there could be like a science mode. You know, you turn on your IQ recorder and it streams out data, and you know, whether you have that stream is just as good as what's coming out of a Tangerine SDR, and it would go into the same software that we have. And then for someone who wants to play science for a certain amount of time, they can put the radio on science mode, go do what, you know, run that, and then when they want to come back and operate, they just flip that off
Yeah.
and go on to a different mode.
Yeah,
I think
what you got to do, you got to show them the sales, the path to sales,
Hmm.
because that's what they're going to be interested in, is how can I sell more radios?
Yeah.
Well, you're also telling the hams that have that radio ways that they can utilize the radio that they haven't used in the past.
Yes.
Yeah.
You can do that, yes.
I
I
think
haven't-
that would be a more successful hawk.
They have very capable equipment. So
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
not the problem. It's
Well,
just
So
getting
I
it
think
so it
I
has some
think
science.
yeah, I think the way to a successful
Keys.
talk here is thinking about how it could use a flex radio to show some science things that people don't normally think about.
That would
And-
probably play, yes.
Yes.
Yeah,
And-
that's the way to.
And you and you guys worked on using some Edis radios as well. So you know how you've used that.
Hmm. And that's one of the things I'm working with Bob McGuire on right now.
Yep.
Yeah.
Sorry.
You
Yeah.
know, I have a
What
flex.
you could do is you could probably have a special flavor of the firmware on the
Mhm.
flex
Yes.
radio. Have some way you could feed in a high precision timestamp and then a special flavor of the IQ output that's timestamped.
Right.
And the radio is capable of doing it. And then you could have something that would be precise enough that you'd be used for interferometry.
Hmm.
Now you've got something that could potentially become radio astronomy equipment.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
I have a flex myself, a 6400. And what Bill described earlier was really a simple use of the flex. He was just using the front end, just feeding out the IQ. That's the
Yeah.
way I perceive it. It's got a whole bunch more stuff built into it that he was doing in other ways. And it brings to mind another guy that I know, Al Ward, W5LUA. He has a Flex 6400 and uses it basically as a transverter to work EME and all kinds of microwave type stuff. And I doubt if he's made more than a handful of HF contacts on it ever. He just keeps it tied to all this transverter stuff.
Yeah.
And so you could have people that get interested in HAMSI and start using their flex for that and make that a pretty principal mode in their mind of what they want to use their flex for.
Yeah. Well, so Bob, since you have a flex, do you or your friends, would you be able to do you have any good examples that I might be able to show at the banquet of some interesting science work that's being done with these things?
No, I don't, because the stuff that I'm focusing on is using other dedicated SDR type boards for astronomy and potentially HAMSI type things.
Yeah.
You know, I'm ashamed that I have such a fine radio and I have a stepper IR antenna that, you know, that really is a powerful antenna, and I just don't spend nearly enough time just doing HF.
Yeah.
Well,
Know the feeling.
sometimes I think I'm going to start getting up at 6 o'clock every morning and go down to my ham shack and just make contacts for an hour, especially on CW, just to get my CW speed back, you know, and, which was required when I was a novice. I couldn't make contacts if I wasn't working CW, you know.
Yeah.
But by the time I get ready to go do something, I find out there's something wrong with my antenna or some other issue that I've got to spend a day or two solving too.
Yeah.
That's the same thing with these projects we're working on.
I know.
Just getting them functional is one thing, but keeping them working is another. My
Mhm.
meteor camera is down, and I've been working on it for about 2 weeks,
Yeah.
trying to get everything recalibrated and running again so I can get a data feed going back into the network.
Yeah. Yeah. We keep thinking, well, if anyone has, I'll keep thinking about it too, but if anyone has ideas on some things, interesting things to show, because of course there's the obvious stuff, right? You know, we have the solar eclipse QSO parties going on. Anyone with a flex radio or any other radio can participate in the solar eclipse QSO party. So I'm going to definitely be, you know, going through what we're doing for the solar eclipse QSO parties, and I'll probably be talking to you know, probably talk about some of the things Rob Robinette is doing with Whisper, and you know, Steve Serwin might have some good ideas too. But it'd be really nice. I think it'd be nice for that dinner if I could show some examples of some science that we can see with these things, or otherwise do. Bill, you do have your Flex set for streaming IQ data into your Tangerine SDR emulator, right?
Well, that whole rig is not really workable now because both of my droids, the video driver chips burned out.
Okay.
So I don't have a complete system. I mean, it could be resurrected, but I just have to, I guess, buy some new droids. I don't know how to use it without a video.
I don't think I'd spend. You have a lot on your plate. I don't think I would spend too much of your
Yeah,
time
I mean,
trying to. I feel like if you spent time doing that, it would take away from doing some of the other things
oh,
that.
definitely,
Yeah.
definitely.
So no, I don't think that's a good idea. It's just if you had it, if it were there and if it were running, and you know, that would be different.
Well, I mean, I wrote an article for the Tapper quarterly or monthly bulletin, whenever it was, about a year ago, that explained the whole thing on how to use a flex radio to collect IQ data.
Mhm.
And so you could refer to that. It's got some
Yeah.
illustrations and stuff in it.
Yeah. I might be able to, you know, also ask. I think one thing I'm gonna do is I think I'm definitely going to talk with Bob McGuire. I think I'm definitely gonna pick his brain. But this also might be something to ask on the Hamside listserv if there are other people who are using flex radios, and then maybe I can have a Zoom with them and see what they're thinking. I don't know.
The other thing about the Flex is it has a couple of antenna inputs.
Yeah.
For this, it might be nice to have 2 more antenna inputs, or so you could have antennas for all the different frequencies that you might want to operate on.
Yeah. I think this is a part of things where I'm personally a little weak. You know, I'm knowing like exactly what to do with the engineering on this level, or you know, I don't have my hands on a flex radio, and I'm trying to write these other papers about, you know, like the traveling atmospheric disturbances and stuff.
I'm
Kind
going
of-
to throw out something wild. Diversity reception. Does the Flex do diversity reception?
which like listening to multiple directions.
Even multiple antennas, maybe.
Yes, I believe it does.
I think it will, yeah.
Okay, is there some way that could be tied into something that we're doing?
Very possibly is.
Just, you know, wild carding an idea here. I know a friend of mine is real big in diversity reception, And he does that frequently, but he's using the Krakens, and he's using the various SDRs. I guess the Elcraft has a second receiver if you're willing to buy it.
Mhm.
Yes, it does.
I know
To
it's
build-
like,
To build a little bit on that, Joe, I mean, you could have an antenna that's, we got horizontal components. You can have another one that's got vertical. You could have them in different directions. I'm just trying to throw out the ideas here to through the discussion spot.
you
Yeah,
need
one-
that for like O mode and X mode reception.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Well, I
I'm
mean,
just thinking, I'm thinking of some of the Anasan plots where you can see the single hop and two hop and that sort of thing, if that could be drawn backwards into this diversity reception stuff.
Yeah.
yeah, you gotta kind of start out with the end in mind. You have to figure out what it is what science it is that you're trying to do, and then figure out what it takes to do it. You get a
Yeah.
Flick 6700, it's got, I think, 4 antenna inputs, and it will display 8 segments of the band at once, and you can work with all of them.
Right.
You really want, I mean, if you got something that needs all that, yeah, at the top end equipment will do it.
Yeah.
Of course, you also get something from Hewlett Packard about the same price that will do it, but whatever.
I might ask what Ethan Miller thinks too. Yeah, Ethan and Bill might have some good thoughts. All right, I'm gonna call it for tonight. I think I'm gonna try and work on some plots for this MSTID paper I'm working on. And I might try and get some sleep after that. But thanks for the discussion, everybody.
It's enjoyable.
Yeah,
73.
73.
Did you
Thank
say
you.
73?
Everyone.
Yeah, if you have any thoughts, feel free to email me. So
7-3, guys.
thank you.